It began with a handshake in a dimly lit room in Berlin. Not on a battlefield, not in a parliament, but behind the polished oak doors of a bank. Few noticed it at the time, and even fewer understood its consequences. But that quiet agreement between financiers would echo through decades, fueling tensions, shifting alliances, and ultimately helping ignite the most devastating conflict the world had ever seen. This isn't the story you learned in school about treaties or assassinations. This is a hidden financial engine beneath World War I, a tale of ambition, debt, secrecy, and a single institution whose reach stretched from the corridors of European power to the trenches of the Western Front. At the heart of it all stood the Disconto-Gesellschaft, a German powerhouse bank that, by the early 20th century, wasn't just moving money, it was shaping empires. Born in 1851 as a modest discount bank handling commercial paper, it grew with astonishing speed, swallowing rivals, forging international ties, and embedding itself into the very sinews of Germany's industrial and military expansion. By 1914, it controlled vast swathes of the nation's railroads, steel mills, coal mines, and arms manufacturers, industries that didn't just support war, but demanded it. The bank's leadership, particularly under visionary yet ruthless figures like Arthur von Gwinner, saw opportunity where others saw risk. They believed Germany's destiny lay not just in unification, but in global dominance, and they were willing to finance that dream no matter the cost. Their strategy was deceptively simple: fund infrastructure and industry in volatile regions, especially the Balkans and the Ottoman Empire, creating economic dependencies that would pull those nations into Germany's orbit. One project above all became their masterstroke: the Berlin-to-Baghdad Railway. On the surface, it was an engineering marvel, a transcontinental line meant to connect the North Sea to the Persian Gulf, opening trade routes and boosting development. But beneath the blueprints lay a far more dangerous agenda. The railway would bypass British-controlled sea lanes, threaten British interests in India and Egypt, and deliver German influence deep into the Middle East, all while being financed, engineered, and largely owned by German capital, much of it funneled through Disconto-Gesellschaft. Britain watched with growing alarm. For centuries, the Royal Navy had ruled the waves, and British banks had financed global trade on London's terms. Now, a land-based economic corridor, backed by German steel and German guns, threatened to upend the entire balance of power. France, still seething from its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War and the loss of Alsace-Lorraine, saw Germany's expansion as an existential threat. Russia, protective of its Slavic allies in the Balkans and wary of German encroachment toward Constantinople, felt its own sphere of influence shrinking. All three powers began to see not just a railway, but a weapon, and the bank behind it as its architect. Meanwhile, Disconto-Gesellschaft kept lending, kept investing, kept pushing. It poured millions into Ottoman debt, propped up Balkan regimes friendly to Berlin, and ensured that German munitions firms like Krupp had the capital to churn out artillery faster than anyone imagined possible. The bank didn't declare war, but it made war profitable, inevitable, even logical for the German elite. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo in June 1914, the spark landed on a continent already soaked in financial tension. Austria-Hungary, backed by secret assurances of German support, including financial backing from Berlin's banking giants, issued an ultimatum to Serbia so harsh it was designed to be rejected. Russia mobilized. Germany declared war. And within weeks, the intricate web of alliances, fueled by years of economic rivalry and bank-financed militarization, snapped taut. But here's what textbooks rarely mention. When the fighting began, Disconto-Gesellschaft in retreat, it accelerated. It helped orchestrate Germany's wartime economy, managing credit for arms production, facilitating resource extraction from occupied territories, and even exploring schemes to destabilize enemy currencies. The bank's leaders believed victory would cement Germany's financial hegemony forever. Instead, they helped build a machine of destruction so vast it consumed them too. By 1918, Germany was bankrupt, its currency collapsing, its industries in ruins. The Treaty of Versailles imposed crushing reparations, and the very financial system Disconto-Gesellschaft had helped construct lay in pieces. In a cruel twist of fate, the bank itself would later merge with another giant, only to be absorbed into what eventually became Deutsche Bank, a name that would carry echoes of his legacy into the next century. Yet the deeper truth remains. World War I wasn't just fought with rifles and trenches. It was funded with ledgers and loans. The decisions made in boardrooms, the risk assessments signed over cigars, the quiet transfers of capital across borders. These were the unseen forces that turned political friction into global conflagration. And while generals mapped battle lines, bankers like those at Disconto-Gesellschaft drew the economic fault lines along which the world would fracture. We like to think of war as a failure of diplomacy, but perhaps it's equally the triumph of certain kinds of finance, the kind that sees nations as markets, conflicts as opportunities, and peace as merely a pause in a ledger. Today, as new economic corridors are drawn across continents, from China's Belt and Road to digital currency alliances, we do well to remember the lesson buried in the archives of a Berlin bank, that when money flows toward domination rather than cooperation, the price is often paid in blood. The bank didn't fire the first shot, but it loaded the gun, paid for the bullet, and profited from the recoil. And in the silence after the last shell fell, only the numbers remained, cold, precise, and utterly indifferent to the millions who never came home.